because the 4 points that are pulled out around health, livelihoods, women, and climate change really ensure that the solutions that we encourage our partners and others in the sector who are working on these issues really look at those 4 different components, because clean cook stoves and fuels can have a very holistic and robust set of impacts that can be positive on those 4 different components, as well as other things. And the second part that's important about that mission statement is through a thriving global market. So we at the Alliance are promoting market-based solutions, and for us that also does include solutions that reach the most vulnerable populations, because when there are large procurements made for these kinds of technologies and projects that are designed in humanitarian crisis settings, they do contribute to the market. So recognizing the role that they play in creating a market and helping those agencies and others working in those settings to fully understand how to provide the most appropriate technologies. So the Alliance has over 250 partners. This just gives you a snapshot of some of the partners, but the unique nature of the Alliance really is that the types of partners we have range greatly. So we have donor governments who've come in with funding, private sector donors, NGO donors, and national partners. So we have country governments who are impacted by the problem who've signed up, made a commitment to creating solutions in their own countries around these issues. And then hundreds of implementing partners, so hundreds of practitioners on the ground implementing these programs. So just to give you a little bit of context around the problem, George talked a little bit about this, but 3 billion people are dependent on traditional stoves and solid fuels around the world. This results in 2 billion tons of biomass being burned each year, and exposure to air pollution that can be typically up to 100 times more than is recommended as healthy by WHO in these households. 2 million people are dying annually, and 30% of household income can be spent on fuel, which, as you can imagine, in households where they're making about $1 a day, that is a huge proportion of their income. Hours can be spent collecting and preparing fuel, and women and children are disproportionately impacted by this issue. So this slide just gives you some idea around some of the different costs and opportunity costs that are impacting the households that are using these types of traditional cook stoves and fuels. So just as one statistic, women can spend up to 4 hours a day collecting wood, which can equal 60 days of a year. And between now and 2030, women can spend almost 3 years of their lives collecting fuel. So I won't go into all of these, but this just gives you an idea of the opportunity costs and the opportunity that really exist around providing some of these clean cooking technologies. So just to give you an idea of where we're at with the sector, those of you who've worked in development for a long time have probably heard about improved cook stove projects before. And the Alliance has formed at a time where we believe we're really at a tipping point for different pieces of the sector coming together to provide an ideal time to get involved in this issue. So innovation and technology has provided the sector with many different varieties of stove options, and you can see 2 that are here. And people are, the innovators are really working up the ladder and trying to provide a variety of solutions that meet different needs. And we really are working with our partners and working to build out tools that partners can tap into that will help them constantly improve the quality of their stoves. So you can see that there are advanced super clean stoves that run on ethanol, solar, other types of alternative fuels. And we are working with those partners to address the barriers that they're facing bringing those super clean technologies into the sector around price, availability of those types of fuels, etc. There is a strong foundation in the sector to build on. Like I've mentioned, there were 2 million stoves sold last year alone. There's been decades of experience doing these types of projects, and there are hundreds of active stove organizations on the ground. But there are a lot of barriers that we need to overcome in order to really reach scale and create these thriving markets. These are just some examples of how the market today really remains fragmented, and what we hope as an alliance coming together as a network of partners working on these issues to really start addressing. So, one big problem is that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. People cook different foods, people have access to different fuels, consumers have different amounts of money they can spend, and so it's very complicated when you start thinking about how to sell one technology on a massive scale to very different types of consumer segments. There are thousands of manufacturers of different sizes and capacities, so this can be an issue when you're trying to develop standards or set testing protocols. How do you reach different types of manufacturers, from a mass manufacturer importing from China, for example, all the way down to a local manufacturer producing a small number of stoves in their backyard, for example. There is a mixed sector track record in actual adoption. So while there's been a history of cookstove projects in development, we have a bit of some reputational things to get over in terms of projects not always meeting the needs of consumers. There are a lot of positive directional indicators about the development impacts that these cookstoves and fuels can have, but there still is some missing solid evidence. And so the Alliance will be working to fill those research gaps by commissioning specific studies. There are a variety of fuels along the energy ladder, which can be a positive thing, but can also cause fragmentation within the market. And many actors are often working in their own silos, which is one of the reasons that the Alliance really decided, that the different stakeholders decided an alliance was really critical for the sector in order to bring everyone under one tent, working under one cohesive strategy. There are also multiple barriers, not just within the market, but for each stakeholder playing a role in the market. So consumers have specific barriers around a lack of awareness about the risks of breathing in the indoor air pollution, or they are aware of it, but they don't know about the availability and benefits of clean cookstoves and fuels that might be available